everyone. I'm Brenda Butner, and this is Bulls and Bears. So, is it the government's job to end poverty? John Edwards and Barack Obama say yes. Their campaigns trying to sell voters on plans to get the government more involved. But should Uncle Sam be in this business? Time to open the trading pit. And here they are, the Bulls and Bears this week. Gary B. Smith, Tobin Smith, Pat Dorsey, Scott Blyer, along with John Bradshaw Layfield, Senior Vice President at Northeast Securities, and David Sirota, syndicated columnist and author of Hostile Takeover. Welcome to everyone. So, John Edwards and Barack Obama on the campaign trail calling for government to end poverty. But Bradshaw, is that really the role of government?
Absolutely not. I don't know who in the world said the government adopts you and takes you to raise. Look, we are spending over $500 billion on social services, on affordable housing, on giving housing away, which is one of the reasons for the subprime mess right now, and it's done no good. But they go to Americans who have made a success, who are paying their own health insurance, and say, we want you to pay for these people who are not, just like your fathers paid for their fathers, their grandfathers paid for their fathers. You want people out of the 9th Ward in Houston, incentivize them and educate them and let them realize the American dream. Handouts do not work.
David, what do you say?
Well, I think that's absurd. I mean, we give away tens of billions of dollars in corporate welfare every year. Here's an example. Fox News, the news corporation, has gotten billions, hundreds of millions of dollars of tax breaks in order for it to be a good corporation. If we can provide those kinds of tax breaks, if we can provide those kinds of tax incentives, then we can make sure that people don't have to starve, that they can have a roof over their head. We're the wealthiest country on earth. The idea that we should just privatize everyone and throw everybody out on the street and we have no moral obligation to make sure that we end poverty, that is absurd.
Okay, Gary B., I know you agree with David, but the question is, isn't a robust economy a better way to end poverty? And you do that through corporations who actually can hire people.
Absolutely, Brenda. You know, I don't even know where to start. Of course, I agree with everything Bradshaw said, but you know, there's a couple big facts. We've been trying to fight poverty in America for 130 years with bigger and bigger government programs, and what do we have? We have even larger welfare rolls than we've ever had. The fact of the matter is, most people who are classified as poor are poor because of a few reasons. They have a single head of the household, so they're unmarried. They work about 16 hours a week, and they have no education past maybe 8th or 9th grade. If you want to incentivize people, try to fix those problems by taking away taxes, by taking away big government, and allow people to get out there and get jobs and get education and maybe even encourage marriage. Then you would fix poverty, not by giving more and more money, which was proven it hasn't worked.
Okay, Pat, what do you say?
Well, there are intelligent ways and foolish ways to provide a social safety net, and I do think there is some level of moral obligation to do that. Ending poverty, that's probably a little bit ambitious, but I think that to couch this debate in sort of handouts versus privatize everything kind of skews things in a pretty bad direction that really doesn't get us anywhere.
Well, Toby, Gary did have a good point in that we have spent billions since the 1960s, and we haven't eradicated poverty. Is that a lesson of history?
Well, I would listen. I go to a great politician, Bill Clinton, who in the 90s said that, you know what, if we actually cut the welfare rolls, the way we would do it is by taking people off and giving them work. In other words, getting an incentive to not be on welfare. And we cut welfare rolls more than any other time in our history. And that was a great lesson that I thought we learned, which was that the idea of putting people on welfare takes the incentive, it takes the self-esteem away from people, and they, in fact, become less productive. Give them a chance, push them off, and give them a chance to learn. They do well. Why are we going to go back and relearn that, Brenda?
Well, in fact, Scott, some of these Democratic plans do include tax credits and incentives.
Well, the redistribution of wealth never ended poverty. It never equalizes earnings. The way you can do that is by making sure everybody's educated and incentivizing business. Now, this is exactly what the Democrats don't want. They don't want you to incentivize business, but that is what creates jobs in this country. Bottom line, job creation comes from the rich when they have to take risk with their money to create jobs. That's the bottom line. I'm sorry to say it, but that is what creates jobs and equals out everything over the course of the country.
David, you've been amazing because most of these guys are experts at interrupting. So now we give you your chance. You've heard their side.
Well, you know, it's incredible. I thought I had heard it all, but giving tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires and huge corporations is the way to eradicate poverty. Really, that is an amazingly absurd, ridiculous, and I might say elitist proposal.
Should the government create jobs for everybody? Is that the answer?
Isn't the issue not so much economic equality, but economic mobility? The poor can move up. That's what America's all about.
Absolutely. You give a person money, you give a person a home, you give a person health care, there is no incentive. If you kill incentive in America, you are killing the American dream.
That is ridiculous. That is absolutely absurd.
Ridiculous.
The idea that somebody needs an incentive to get health care, the idea that somebody needs an incentive
let me
to
explain
get
this
a
to
job,
you then, David. Let me
is
explain this to
ridiculous.
you then.
Somebody wants to get a health care, somebody wants to get affordable health care, affordable housing. They don't need an incentive, they need it to survive. That's the problem.
Let me explain this to you. Let me explain to you about Economics 101. I was broke one time. I didn't go to the government. I didn't go for a handout. I made a lot of money doing what I do, and that was pull myself by my own bootstraps. If these guys don't want to do that, I do not have a right to have to pay them to sit at home and watch us on television. But that is insane.
But wait a second.
But hold on. You know what? He also wrestled a bear, so most people can't do it the same way he does. David,
but it starts with education. You've got to make sure. Look at Japan. There are very few poor people. There's very little poverty in Japan because education is the most important thing from the day you're born, and that's how to take the country out of poverty.
All right,
the problem is though, there's a problem
David,
with the education
I'm sorry. I just want to get Gary B in, and then you get your chance too. Go ahead,
Well,
Gary.
yeah, I mean, I'll be interested in hearing from David because I guess his proposal is basically, okay, let's just say we agreed that we're going to take all the tax incentives and tax breaks away from the rich, by the way, who are mostly entrepreneurs and making jobs for the rest of the country. But let's just say we did that. His proposal is more of the same. And I'd be happy to sign up for it if his more of the same worked. But it hasn't worked. It's created more people on welfare, so I don't understand where he's going.
Go ahead,
That's
David.
ridiculous. The idea that it hasn't worked. We've got tens of millions of more people who are not in poverty thanks to the war on poverty. We have Medicare that provides health care to people that wasn't there because of the war on poverty. So your idea that none of these programs works is absolutely insulting to the tens of millions of people who have benefited from it. Social Security, Medicare, affordable housing programs, these programs work. And I applaud the politicians who are out there saying it's time for our country to go back to that moral message, to build that safety net.
We've got everybody jumping over the table here trying to get in. Toby?
Well, if it works so well, I guess John Edwards is just doing the wrong type of campaign strategy here. I thought his whole point was that we had this poverty in the United States that was so endemic that we had to go out and come up with a new way. But let's be real. And we've talked with lots of people who've had very, very rough times in life. And the one thing you always hear from them is they say, you know what made me grateful is when I had an opportunity. It wasn't that you lifted me up, but you gave me an opportunity. No one here is against opportunity. What we are is against the false opportunity of handouts.
All right, David, one last time.
Well, the idea that, again, we're having a debate, we're debating past each other. The idea that it's, we're hearing from you guys, everything is a handout, everything's, for what Reagan called the welfare queens. We're talking about building a social safety net, building a safety net that our country has had and it has a moral obligation to do. And I don't think there's anything controversial about that. What's controversial are elitists and economic folks at the top saying that we shouldn't do that.
All right. Thank you so much, David. You're a good sport. And that does it for the Trading Pit.